Joined now by Vicki McKenna for our weekly Culture Cast segment. Vicki, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Boy, isn't it interesting how Asian Americans are upturning the apple cart? On the one hand, if you've been paying attention over the last 4 or 5 months, we've seen a number of videos where elderly Asians in California are being punched out, sucker punched by primarily African Americans for reasons we don't know. And there's violence being directed at the Asian American community. At the other side of the ledger, Asians are being discriminated against in terms of getting into places like Harvard and Yale. They're just too darn good at school, and it's starting to drive the progressive left nuts. So they're being held out of school even though they have the right credentials. And they are minorities. They're not white. And so a lot going on in the Asian American community. Let's talk about this.
So what I think you're seeing now, first off, for a long, long time, the left considered Asian Americans and Asian immigrants as white. They were proxies for white people. And so, if they did better in school, then they were going to actually have a burden to overcome even greater than, normal admittance requirements for various different colleges. And I think that's what you saw at Harvard. The Asian American students applying saying, we need an SAT score that's 50 points higher than the white kid's SAT score and, substantially higher than the black kid's SAT score. And we're saying that's discrimination. And for a long, long time, the left was completely okay with basically treating Asian people as super white people, right? Like super, like whiter than white supremacy. And they realized that they kicked to the curb, I think, in my opinion, a voting bloc. And I think what you see now is the left attempting to harness the Asian American voting bloc, because it is up for grabs. It's a very independent voting bloc, into service to social justice. So even though you're exactly right, you've got all of these attacks on people, particularly elderly Asian people, and it's not by white people. And you do have leftist professors who basically call Asian people white supremacists. You have someone scratching their head saying, oh my goodness, we're blowing off a voting bloc here. So let's see if we can't find a way to rectify the problem. Trump comes out, talks about China negatively. All of a sudden, a door opens and the left thinks it can seize an opportunity to seize the Asian voting bloc.
Yeah, of course, all this violence against Asians is now Trump's fault, nobody else's fault. The irony. I mean, Trump is for 30 years now, he's going to be blamed for everything. But I remember learning about post-World War II America, where you had a similar situation with Jewish Americans who were considered white, but also considered a minority in many circles because of what they had suffered here and in places like Nazi Germany. And so white Jewish kids were getting into colleges, and there was a lot of consternation because there were too many of them, right? And so we had to mitigate their success and their hard work so that other kinds of Americans could get in. And then we have Allison Collins on the other side of the spectrum. She is a school board member in San Francisco, one of the goofiest, if not the goofiest, public school board in any place in this country. And she came out and said what a lot of leftists think. She said that basically Asian Americans are tricksters, literally. How's that for a racist construction? That they are playing the game. They have learned how to become white. They've learned how to pass.
Right.
They're appropriating white supremacist strategies, i.e. studying hard. When did we get to the point that studying hard and working as hard as you can to be good at things like math, when did that become now a white supremacist strategy to screw over blacks and Hispanics?
Well, I'll say right around 2012. I think when you first had the inclinations of the formation of Black Lives Matter, it wasn't officially formed as a group at that time. But that sensibility has been insinuated in higher education for a long time. This idea that model minority, that's what Asian people are supposedly, a model minority. They model white culture. And so that was another way the left, I think, gave themselves an excuse to discriminate against Asian people as well, is that they act white. And that's the derisive commentary that the left has been practicing for years, and targeting Asian Americans. You get to Stop Asian Hate, hashtag Stop Asian Hate, and where does that come from? It's a 100% about face. I think that's driven by the fact that Asian people are a potent voting bloc in the United States. They think they've got an opportunity. They've got now, second, third, fourth generation Asian Americans, and they think that they can, harness them into service of social justice. Most of these kids have gone through the school system, the public school system that has been preaching this stuff for decades. So I think it's ripe. I think they think that the propaganda is ripe for the execution, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Well, there never has been an Asian plantation that Democrats can exploit, so they're trying to create one now. Vicki,
correct. Yeah, it's a good point.
After the break, let's continue this. I have a couple more questions to ask you. Okay, back again for part two of my conversation with Vicki McKenna on CultureCast. Vicki, go back to this Allison Collins now. So on the one hand, liberals are trying to paternalistically wrap their arms around the Asian community and say, there, stop achieving so much, start playing the victim, start lowering your kids' test scores, and we'll welcome you as a full-fledged minority and take care of you. Or you can keep acting white and we'll call you out. This Allison Collins actually used the word house, N-I-G-G, you know the word, called Asian Americans house blanks because of the way that they were using success and opportunity in this country. Here's my thought. This is a huge backhanded compliment for white Americans. What she's basically saying, Allison Collins, that the reason whites have gotten ahead is because of hard work and the Protestant work ethic, basically. They've gotten ahead because they've worked real hard. Asians have emulated that. Traitors to the big plantation version of race, and so they're succeeding too. In a way, isn't the left just basically saying that all that opportunity that we on the right keep talking about, it is there, and anybody who wants to access it, who can, no matter what their color is?
Oh, for sure. It exposes the racial lie, the racialist lie that the left continually tells. And Asian American kids and their parents are not easily put in the victimhood category. And I think this is just an effort by the left to get them to choose victimhood. You love bomb people when they have become victims, right? When suddenly you're a victim, then all of a sudden we care so much about you and we're going to have hashtags for you and march with banners for you to try to get people comfortable with the attention that being a victim entails. I think a lot of people who are in the victimhood classes are comfortable being there because it gives them a lot of attention, a lot of positive reinforcement, a lot of positive attention, and excuses for failure. And I think they think, well, we've had these kids in our classrooms for a few generations now. They should be pretty well pre-chewed, for a pitch to join us on the victimhood, on the USS victimhood. And I think that's what you're seeing. So it remains to be seen, though, whether the Asian American culture, the subculture of that ethnicity in the United States is strong enough to withstand the siren song of intersectional victimhood. And I don't know. It is interesting to me that the left is making a hard play for it when only, months ago, they were basically calling Asian American people white supremacists. But you see them really sticking with this Atlanta story. Even though it has nothing to do with race, you have them thinking that this is the first launch, maybe, very much like the Trayvon Martin story or very much like the Michael Brown story. The first really hardcore story we're going to push to try to set this narrative, and I don't think you're going to see it slow anytime soon.
Yeah, my big concern is, as we know, first-generation Americans, those are of any race, those are the ones who tend to be more conservative, a little bit more cautious, less willing to play into all of these larger political narratives. They're sort of finding their way. It's the kids and the grandkids, the ones, like you said, who are pre-chewed in the government schools. The younger
Sure.
Asians are the ones who are becoming more like the typical left-wing social justice warrior. So I don't know. No other culture has been able to survive after a few generations without being hooked into the left. I find it difficult to imagine that the Asian American culture will. And don't forget, think about what the left does with African Americans who are hardworking, all about liberty, all about freedom. People like Clarence Thomas, people like Candace Owen, people like Condoleezza Rice. If you're a black person who accesses through your own hard work and intelligence the American freedoms, the American dream, then they hate you just as much as they hate anybody else.
You're a multiracial white supremacist. That's actually a phrase. Multiracial white supremacist. You can't make it. You can't make any of it make sense. But listen, government schools, You have, particularly with Asian American kids, they have their parents have a high, respect and ethic that values education. These kids are going to college. They are going through the same meat grinder that you see every single day you go to work, Duke. It is education through lenses. It's not just knowledge for knowledge's sake. It's about political propaganda and harnessing students into social activism and political activism. Why should the Asian American kids, escape that? I mean, what would make them escape that any more than any other kid who would be setting foot on an American college campus could?
It seems to me, Vicki, the takeaway from all of this is that what used to be the American dream, come here, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, suffer a little bit, work hard, and you'll get rich down the road, has been replaced with the American dream now is getting on the dole, not having to work. Anybody but white people are entitled. White people are the problem. That seems to be the new formulation of the American dream.
Yeah, $1,400 stimulus checks, universal basic income.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Most of you know our show is being censored by big tech.
While this makes it harder to meet the cost of producing the show, that's part of it. It also demonstrates that we must be having tremendous success, or they wouldn't bother to try to shut us down.
If you like hearing truth and common sense with a love for freedom, please join the Patriot Club with a one-time $99 tax-deductible donation. And you'll get this sweet vessel of joy as part of a thank you for joining the Patriot Club.
Etched with the American flag and the words freedom never tasted so good.
All you have to do is visit patriotclub.us and become a Patriot member today.
That's patriotclub.us. Thank you and God bless.